We're live now.
Good evening, everyone. I am Katyot, coordinator at EML, and I welcome you all to the next lecture in the EML webinar series 2021-2022. EML is the flagship lecture series of IITM that conducts year-long lectures and interviews with distinguished speakers from various domains, including media, sports, administration, literature, and politics, among others. In the past, we have proudly hosted the likes of Dalai Lama, Kailash Satyarthi, Venkaiah Naidu, Indra Nooyi, and A.R. Rahman, to name a few. To continue this grand legacy, I wish to introduce our speaker for this lecture, Sam Pitroda, popularly known as the father of India's computer and IT revolution. Pitroda filed scores of patents, including mobile phone-based transaction technology, helped former PM Rajiv Gandhi in bringing computerization as an advisor to him. He shaped India's telecommunication policy and was an advisor for former PM Dr. Manmohan Singh. He has received many awards, including Lal Bahadur Shastri National Award in 2000 and Padma Bhushan in 2009. Dear Sam, we are honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep. And now let's start with the questions.
Sure.
Yeah. After securing much of your secondary education and employment abroad, what was the driving factor behind your decision to return to India?
Well, I was born and raised in India in a small little tribal village during British Raj. So growing up in boarding schools, Gandhi was our role model. In college, in Baroda, I studied physics, and one fine morning read that President Kennedy has decided to send man onto the moon. As a young man, I had this great dream, and I decided to come to America in 1964. Took a boat from Mumbai to Karachi to Aden to Egypt to Italy, took a train from Italy to London, and took a plane from London to New York and a bus from New York to Chicago. Landed up here, studied electrical engineering after physics, built a business, made a little bit of money, and came to India to take my parents to see Taj Mahal. And I tried to make a phone call from Delhi to Chicago to my wife, and I could not make a phone call. Then India had 2 million telephones, less than 2 million for population of almost 700 million. So a little bit of arrogance and a lot of ignorance said, I would like to spend my life connecting India because I was convinced that India, with the diversity we have, requires connectivity. So since I had made a little bit of money, I never had any money. I thought it is good to use this time and opportunity in my life when I was young, in late 30s, to go back to India and change India's telephone industry. I had worked in digital switching in America, had many patents here, built industry. And I got a chance to give a presentation to Mrs. Indira Gandhi. And I told her that telecom and IT will change the face of India. Then no one believed it. This was 1980. Indira Gandhi gave me a chance to set up Center for Development of Telematics, which was a non-profit government organization. At that point in time, I had to make a choice between building a business in India and make lots of money, or to do public service and make a larger impact. And I decided to make a larger impact. And then I was convinced that after Mrs. Gandhi died and Rajiv Gandhi became Prime Minister, I was convinced that it is time to go back to India, lock, stock, and barrel, change my nationality back from US to India, and spend a decade working there to build telecom and IT infrastructure. Today, in a short span of 35 years, we have gone from 2 million phones to 1.5 billion phones. So zero software to $180 billion worth of software and services export. We are seen as the champion of IT world over. And that is the transformation that we have seen in over 3 decades. So that's the reason I decided to come back. I can't hear you. You are muted.
Yep, that was very inspiring because like you have chosen to help the masses over your personal benefits. Yep. We move on to the next question. One of your major objectives was to extend India's digital communications to rural areas, a task that you have well accomplished. In the contemporary age of digital India, how would one overcome the economic and social barriers that prevent the lower income groups from harnessing the benefit of technology?
When we decided to launch the early program in India, we decided to focus on accessibility and not telephone density. We decided to focus on rural telecom and not urban telecom, small switching exchanges and not large switching exchanges. So we launched a program called Estd PCOs, where people could go make a phone call, but they don't have to own a telephone. That was the first revolution, which was unique in terms of focus on accessibility anywhere else in the world. We designed products with indigenous know-how, local talent from students like you from IITs. And the question you have asked is not only of concern in telecom, it is of concern to education, health, water, sanitation, energy, telecom, and everything else. It takes time, sometimes generations, to reach out to every part of the country. So what begins in urban ultimately trickles down to rural, but we did exactly opposite. We started with rural. So I think there are 2 major programs which give us a lot of hope in India today. One, both were launched during Manmohan Singh's time. One was National Knowledge Network to connect 1100 nodes to 40 gigabit bandwidth to connect all our universities, libraries, and scientific institutions. That network is used today for e-governance. In addition, we have a program to connect all our panchayats to optical fiber. Unfortunately, that program has taken much longer than we had thought. And once we connect all panchayats, you really have hyperconnectivity to rural areas. In addition, we provided Aadhaar, which is UID for identification, universal payment interface to improve payment, and a lot of the e-governance programs. So I think we are in a position today to say that digital revolution is touching everybody in India in one form or the other. But remember, it took 30 years to do that. It didn't happen in last 5 or 7 years, as many people believe. All the seeds were planted long time ago. Now we are benefiting from it, which is great. It is never to everyone's satisfaction. I wish every poor, every rural will be touched. But sometimes it doesn't happen. So let's look at glass as half full and not half empty.
Yes, Sam. When you told you have done the opposite, like starting from the rural and then moving on to the urban, I think you would have faced a lot of challenges. Could you talk something about that?
Oh, we had a lot of challenges in 80s because of resistance. One, from vested interest, import lobbies, multinationals with huge interest in Indian market, and our own bureaucracy. who didn't want to change. Remember, we were trying to privatize telecom in mid-80s. Privatization was a four-letter dirty word in those days. Okay. It was not easy. So there was a lot of resistance from all kinds of areas. But we had political will. I could do what I did only because Rajiv Gandhi provided political will to get it done. He supported us at every step. He backed us up, did not interfere, believed in young talent, believed in Indian talent, and believed in Indian model of development. People don't realize why India is IT powerhouse today, because the seeds were planted then. We also had technology missions related to water, literacy, immunization, edible oil, milk production, and telecom. Then literacy was below 30%. Now it is over 80%. Then polio was a major problem. Now polio is eradicated completely. Then we were not producing any vaccine. Now we are the largest producer of vaccine in the world. We are largest producer of milk in the world. So I think it is important to plant right seeds. And sometimes you are never there to see the fruits. Doesn't matter. Somebody else eats the fruit, which is perfectly normal. So don't be in a hurry to eat the fruit. Plant many more seeds. And that's what we did. Okay. So it was very difficult. We had to make, we had to convince labor. We launched a program to computerize railways, and there was so much resistance from labor then. There were strikes, and people used to cut our fiber optics cables, and all kinds of things we went through. There was a time when bureaucracy wouldn't let us do anything. So I went to Rajiv Gandhi and I said, look, I need to be now chairman of the Telecom Commission and secretary of Telecom, because if I'm not secretary of Telecom, this will never happen. So I became secretary of Telecom, okay, to take control of the bureaucracy. So a lot of these things had to be done, which is a way of life. You have to solve the problems. Okay. But unfortunately, young people today don't know what went on, how things got done. A lot of this is very important as part of our education to see how things get done in a country. Go ahead.
Yep. And talking about the young talent that you mentioned, so as a founder of the National Innovation Council, how do you look at the startup culture in India, and how to expand these opportunities beyond urban youth and elite institutions?
Not just Knowledge Commission, we had a National Innovation Council after Knowledge Commission. Knowledge Commission talked about innovation. There were 21 subjects related to access, applications, concept, services, and knowledge in government. And Innovation Council really took up a task of setting up startup initiatives. So we had series of startup initiatives in Kerala and other parts of the world. We launched National Innovation Councils at state level, national level, and really created awareness. We even initiated a fund, a $2 billion fund, which never took off because the bureaucracy did not want us to do a fund. Bureaucracy wanted fund to be run by IAS officers. And we said, they don't have any experience in startups, and it has to be run by private industry. And it got in a mess, and it never got started then. So startup culture is important. We have lots of problems to solve. To solve problems, you don't need to be in rural area, but you have to understand rural needs. You could be at IIT in Madras and solve a rural problem once you understand the challenge in rural areas. So I think it is important to understand the problem you are trying to solve in startups. So startup culture is very important, but it cannot be focused on solving problems of the rich. I have always said that best brains in the world are busy solving problems of the rich who really don't have problems to solve. And as a result, best talent doesn't get to solve the problems of the poor. You look at all our IIT and IIM graduates world over. They are just all over the world. You go to Singapore, there are 5,000 executives from India with IIM and IIT degrees. You go to US, there are tons of people. What are they doing? They are all solving problems of the rich. In the process, they are also becoming rich, which is great. More power to them. But a lot of that talent has not been diverted to address the challenges of the poor in the world. India can be the focal point today for green technologies, not just for India, but for the world. Like we did in IT, we can do the same thing in green technologies. No one in the world has the kind of talent pool that we have in India in our young. I think our young are dedicated, clear, hardworking, because many of them come from poor families. They have no way to go but go up. They look forward to better life. They work harder. They are not given silver spoon. And they are hungry. And we need to use this talent pool, not just to get degree from IIT and go work for multinationals, but to get a degree and solve the problems of the world and not just India. So I think India has huge potential. Unfortunately, we are caught up on petty issues. I want to make sure that democracy flourishes in India. I want to make sure that the freedom is respected, because all of these things are connected with talent and knowledge. You know, hyperconnectivity is key to democratization of knowledge, decentralization of decision making, and demonetization of services. Hyperconnectivity is about content, curation, context, and communication. It is a unique opportunity to take humanity to the next level. It is not about solving problems of the rich. It is about really rethinking the whole paradigm. I've just written a book called Redesign the World, because I believe the world design that we created after World War II is obsolete, doesn't work anymore. You see what is going on in Ukraine is an example of the fact that the world design doesn't work anymore. We need a new design of the world. UN, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO don't have the same meaning that we had 75 years ago. So you got to think very differently. But we are caught up in petty politics. We are caught up in settling scores. We are caught up on religion world over. And we got to think differently. And only young people can help us in charting out a roadmap for the future. Unfortunately, young also get trapped in old ideas. Sometimes I talk to young people and I feel that they sound like their parents. And that worries me. They got to rebel. They got to stand up against establishment in many ways to bring about generational change. They have to be the change agents.
Well, talking about the young pool, so why do you think the young pool are trapped into going on solving the problems of the rich and not really the people in need? And how do you
Partly because it is paying. People compare pay and say, if I get 2 lakh rupees a month salary there, I go there, and I may be solving problems of, um, wealthy people. That's okay because they can pay. I don't want to solve the problems of Dharavi because Dharavi people are not capable of paying. It's that simple. It's only money. Okay. But the challenges of Dharavi are very complex. Dharavi problems are very difficult to solve. So if you're excited about a complex problem to solve, you do one thing. If you want easy life, easy money, you do something else. It's up to you.
Well, so how do you think the youth can be motivated to redirect their vision uh, towards this
I
problem?
believe youth need to understand that world of the future will be created by them. If they don't speak up and take charge, efforts like Ukraine will continue all over the world. Today it is Ukraine, tomorrow it will be on our borders or somebody else's border. So the whole narrative today is wrong. The narrative about enemy at the border is based on command and control architecture. I want to control everything. I want to be the chief in command. What hyperconnectivity requires is collaboration, cooperation, co-creation, and communication. Young in India need to look at young in Pakistan as collaborator, not enemy. But our leaders want you to look at them as enemy. Young in Nepal, young in Bangladesh, they all don't collaborate. Okay. Who do you collaborate with? You immediately collaborate with the West. Your collaboration with is America, Europe, rich. So young will have to rethink through their role in building the future. One role would be to go support the establishment through and through. Indian establishment, global establishment. Western mindset, which is based on power and profits. I am saying young should focus on planet and people and not power and profit. We are trained to focus on power and profit. The real challenge at the end of the day is to take care of planet and take care of people. Planet is in pain because of environmental blunders we have made. People are in pain because of inequality, poverty, hunger, violence. So why can't young people just focus on these two things? How do I improve my planet? By focusing on environment. Because planet doesn't need us, we need planet. And how do we take care of the people in the world? And it begins with equality. And when our leaders talk about religion, polarized politics, it bothers me. On one hand, you have hyperconnectivity and digital India. On the other hand, you talk about dividing people. It don't match. Okay. Everybody should be treated with respect, dignity. Right from home, including women, children, handicap, irrespective of race, religion, caste, color, food we eat. We are all part of the unique ecosystem. In fact, we need to learn to celebrate our diversity and not really define our narrow sphere of influence. And young people need to speak up. Unfortunately, they are party to the politics that goes on. Look at what happened recently on this hijab. Okay, is a classical example. But People don't think like that. To me, the only thing that one need to ask as a young person, is it good for planet or bad for planet? Is it good for people or bad for people? And that's it. And get off this idea of power and profit. That's what Gandhiji did. To me, Gandhi is more relevant today to the world than ever before in the history. If we had followed Gandhian model after World War II, as opposed to Western model, the world would be very different. We need decentralization, bottom-up development. Small is beautiful. We need networking of small to scale. And we have done exactly opposite to Gandhian ideas. And we take great pride in building huge, powerful companies. And then they use their power. So I think our developmental model is wrong. In my book, I talk about the fact that last design of the world was based on democracy, human rights, capitalism, consumption, and military. We need a new design that is based on inclusion, human needs, and not human rights. New economy, regenerative economy. Not consumption, but conservation and sustainability. And finally, non-violence. But for that, you need new institutions. Today, world over, there is no institution on non-violence. There is no government minister on inclusion. Your health ministry is Ministry of Sickness. It is not Ministry of Wellness. Vertical silos don't make sense in interconnected world. You need networking. So when you say education, it is not about Department of Education. It is about education as a lifelong learning initiative. So I think everything is obsolete. Everything we do today is basically obsolete in interconnected world. Why does it take 4 years to get a degree? Who decided it should take 4 years? Why do you need 5 years to get an MD? Why do you have to remember all the names of all the bones? It's available on internet. Whenever I need, I can go check it out. So do I really need 5 years to get an MD? Maybe I can get something similar to MD in 2 years. Can I do that to meet the needs of our doctors today in India? Why do I have to have an MD? So I think all of these are very important questions that we haven't really asked. Go ahead.
So we have to ask the right questions and rethink about the system. So talking about people and planet, especially in the context of sustainable development, how do you position individual contribution in comparison with the work done by large MNCs and government organizations? Can an individual action make a difference, or does it entail a massive structural change?
Just think of Gandhiji. Does individual action matter? Yes. Think of Mandela. Think of Martin Luther King. Think of Einstein. Think of Newton. Do individuals matter? Of course they matter. Of course. They make everything happen. One person can change the world. Are you willing to do it? Do you have guts to do it? Do you have sustaining power to do it? Do you have patience to do it? Do you have intelligence to do it? All of these things matter.
And talking about an internal problem of students or anyone, many of your professional endeavors in the Knowledge Commission and your non-profit verticals emphasize on the importance of interdisciplinarity in solving global crises. In this context, how do you view the trade-off between interdisciplinary education and specialization in one particular field or domain?
I think you need both. Okay, you need specialization to put your feet on the ground. And then you need interdisciplinary education to expand your horizon. You can't do without some understanding of one field, whatever that is. It could be art, it could be economy, it could be, architecture, it could be electrical engineering, electronics, whatever. Okay. You need that one vertical to be able to go in depth. And then you have to change with multidisciplinary, saying that discipline with reference to economy, social change, regulations, impact on people, impact on environment. What does it mean? Okay. So I think it is important to have both, but multidisciplinary education is very, very critical. My generation didn't have that. I didn't study anything about psychology, philosophy, anthropology. I had to study all that on side. I wish I had studied a lot of that when I was young. Yeah. Even history, my knowledge of history was very poor and is still very poor. But you learn every day. The key is to make you a self-learner. Degree is not important to me anymore. Are you a self-learner? Do you learn every day? Do you realize that learning is a lifelong process? I'm 80-year-old and I read at least, I would say 3-4 hours a day. And I find that I know very little about so many things. And that makes me realize how complex this world is and how little I know.
So, yeah, so it's all about striking the right balance between these two and also being a constant learner. So talking about your book, Redesign the World, talks about moving beyond the dichotomy of public-private, liberal-conservative, so on and so forth, by keeping people and the planet as the core of development. However, in most cases, the economic and social incentives are not aligned with one another. For example, the economic benefit of a new mining industry will bear the social cost of displaced people and environmental damage. How does a policy maker decide on these lines?
Policymakers have to really get off this bandwagon of profit and power and get onto the bandwagon of people and planet. That's simple. Okay. It's not rocket science, but policymakers worry about profits because some rich guy is going to give him something to change the policy. So policies are designed in many ways by vested interest. Policies are not designed by people with awareness and commitment to planet and people. That's all there is to it.
And also we have one question from one of our students, Nitin Ali Bashir from HS21. As a person who has worked in both the tech sector and the government, did you find yourself simultaneously excited by the possibility of using technology and data in government to improve people's lives, while being scared of the misuse of the same tool?
No, I've never been scared of misuse of data because it's like knife. You use it to cut fruits and you can also kill somebody. I can't worry about that. Okay. I have to worry about good use of it. If I worry about bad use of it, I'll never get started. So all my life, I spent time on sort of looking at technology to solve problems of the poor, problems of the people at the bottom of the economic pyramid. And in the process, there are some issues related to privacy, piracy that affect us. That's okay. That's part of the game.
So it is all about accepting that it happens and trying to minimize the negative effects and
Absolutely.
And Mr. Sam, before we wrap, do you have something to say to our audience?
No, I would say to you, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate. I hope enough of our young people get to listen to it, think about it. Not that I have all the answers, but I think you have all the answers. You as young need to look at the future you want to build. Do you want to listen? Or do you want to really pay attention to what is going on in the world today? And are you happy with it? Or do you want to change the world? If you want to change the world, be a change agent. So my bottom request or bottom line request would be a change agent in every way possible. In your area of expertise, in your family, in your neighborhood, in your city, in your district, be a change agent. Convince your family that democracy is important, that you cannot distinguish people based on religion. Diversity is to be celebrated. Convince your family that scientific thinking matters, that institutions matter, that civil society matters. And be a big change agent in your community, and you will change the world. Don't underestimate your power to change the world. Use it. Thank you.
We have just one more question from the audience. What are the technological challenges faced by India in implementing the voice over internet protocol, the VoIP, according to you?
It's happening. It's happening. It's such a, it's happening. It's not a big deal. It's irrelevant, really. In larger scheme of things, it's fine. It's happening, and our, telecom operators and our, scientists know what to do, and they are doing it. We have done pretty well in IT and telecom as a nation. It is one of our biggest success stories in the recent times, and credit goes to talented young Indians.
And we have a question from one more audience. Sir, why is that still we are heavily dependent on China and other countries in the West for our telecom equipments? By opening it to companies outside India, are we not making our system vulnerable or obsolete?
Yes, absolutely. We had INC.Time local production, local infrastructure, and we killed that. We need local. A country of 1.5 billion people has to have local production capabilities in telecom. You got to build it. But it's easy to go import equipment. And our industry does that. What can you do?
And is the Indian telecom industry infrastructure, especially rural, ready for a 5G? And do you think India's government plan to launch 5G in the end of 2022 feasible?
Doesn't matter, really. I mean, 5G, 4G doesn't matter. It's okay. So you're a little late in 5G. It's an irrelevant issue, really. It'd be nice if we were in tune with the world in 5G, but then we should be in tune with the world on water, on sanitation, on literacy, on immunization, on everything. So it's okay. Don't get too excited about 5G and big data and IoT and all these buzzwords. Okay, the question is, what are you doing with these tools? Okay, if you had 5G, what would you do? Watch Bollywood movies faster? I mean, those are the questions we need to ask. But anyway, I understand the question and I appreciate it. We'll get there.
So it's about understanding that things will happen and focus more on how to use the power we get. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And thank you so much, Sam. With that, we come to the end of the lecture. And I would like to thank Mr. Sam Pitroda for spending his valuable time with us, giving us insights and answering our questions. I would also like to thank all the viewers who submitted questions for the lecture. And stay tuned to the EML because we have an exciting lineup coming up in the future. And meanwhile, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until then, goodbye. Signing off, Kadiyat.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.